4.4, which is on scatter plots. So you might have done scatter plots before in like science or math before. They're kind of common. And then we're going to have a work day on Wednesday to complete the assignment. It's just a little bit longer of a lesson. So I'm going to lecture all class today. So let me open up that Jamboard really quick. I am sorry that I was not available on Friday for help sessions if anyone needed help. I was sick. I'm feeling much better now, but if you want to schedule office hours, let me know to get caught up and we can definitely do that. Okay, so we are going to do 4.4 scatter plots and lines of best fit. So we're going to start off with some vocab. So the first one is scatter plot, and a scatter plot is a graph that shows the relationship between two data sets. So it could be something like hours you study and your grades, or number of minutes you practice and how well your sports team does. Or it can be things that are completely unrelated, like Americans and their hair length, or like people in Europe and their hair length. So it doesn't have to be something that always is like things that you put together as like data sets that have to go together. Okay, our next word is correlation. So correlation is the relationship between the two data sets in the scatter plot. So it's either positive, negative, or no correlation. And then last word in our vocab is line of fit. And so the line of fit is a line drawn that is close to most of the data points. So with a scatter plot, things are scattered. We've been working with like graphing a line where every point on the line is like a point and goes through the function, where with a scatter plot, we're not going to be able to maybe hit every single point with our line, but we're going to get as close to it as we can. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go over a couple different examples for scatter plots and just kind of how to look at a scatter plot and understand what's being talked about. So can you guys see this right here? This is a scatter plot. It's labeled smoothies. On my x-axis, I have sugar, and on my y-axis, I have calories. It says right here, the scatter plot shows the amount in grams of sugar and the number of calories in 10 smoothies. So each dot is the smoothie, a different smoothie, and the bottom shows how much sugar it has, and the side shows how much calories it's worth. So the first question says, how many calories are in the smoothie that contains 56 grams of sugar? So I'm going to come down to my grams of sugar, which is X, and I'm going to find 56. And it's not until right in between right here. So then I'm going to follow that up. Ooh, that's not a straight line, but you get what I'm trying to do. And then I'm going to follow that over to my calories to find out how many calories there are. So there are 270 calories in a smoothie that has 56 grams of sugar. Question B, how many grams of sugar are in a smoothie that contains 320 calories? So now for 320 calories, I'm going to come over to the calories column and find it. And so 320, so I'm going to go all the way over. And there's only one dot. And I'm going to follow that dot down to the x-axis and 70. So 70 grams of sugar. And then lastly, the last question is, what tends to happen to the number of calories as the number of grams of sugar increases? So as sugar increases, goes this way, what happens to our calories? So if I look at my dots, this is like my lowest sugar, and then this is my highest sugar. As the sugar increases, the calories increase as well. So this is interpreting a scatter plot, being able to look at it and understand what is being conveyed. So this next one is kind of an example for you guys to do. So the first, looking at this, we have the title, which is studying and averages. So weekly homework hours for the x-axis and grade point average on the y. So the first question is, what is the grade point average of a student who spends 6 hours a week on homework? So can someone look at the data and tell me in the chat, what is the grade point average of a student who spends 6 hours a week on homework? And I see 2.0 in the chat from Evelyn, and that is correct. So she went to the 6 and then followed it up and over to 2.0. Good job, Evelyn. Okay, the next question is, how many hours a week does the student who has a 2.75 GPA spend on homework? So a student that has a 2.75 GPA, how many hours a week do they spend on homework? Well, yes, you guys both are correct. So first we're going to come to the grade point average and find 2.75. And so this will be 2.5. So 2.75 is in the middle here. Go over and I find a point, and then I'm going to follow that point down. And it takes me to 12. Good job, ladies. And then our last question is, what tends to happen to the grade point average as the number of hours spent on homework increases? So as this number increases, what happens to our GPA? Just a short little sentence. They get higher, yes. They get higher, they get larger, they increase. So as the weekly homework gets bigger or increases, the grade point average also increases. Okay, so that's interpreting a scatter plot. So you guys can look at a scatter plot and to tell me what's happening. Next up, we have identifying correlations. So within each scatter plot, the data will either be positively correlated, negatively correlated, or no correlation. So with positive correlation, as x increases, y increases. Negative correlation, as x increases, y decreases. And no correlation, there's no pattern to be found in the data. It's kind of scattered everywhere. So a way that I like to think of it as positive correlation is similar to a positive slope because it looks the same. we would say that that's a positive slope. And same with negative correlation, it looks like a negative slope. So it's kind of easy to remember that way. And then no correlation, there's just no way you can really put a line through that to get as many points in it as you can. So now we're going to look at 4 examples and I'm determine if they're positive or negative. So for A right here, we have age and vehicles owned. So the person's age and then the number of vehicles they've owned. So looking here, is it a positive correlation, negative, or no correlation? If I were to try and draw a line on here, I can't really get most of the points because it's kind of sporadic and spread out. So for A, I'm going to say no correlation. Because the number of vehicles owned doesn't really depend on a person's age. It can be different for anyone. So that's why there's not really a correlation. But then if we come and look at the next one, it says temperature and coat sales at a store. And we can see that as the temperature increases, the coat sales decrease as well. And if I were to draw a line through it, I could get kind of a negative line to go through most of my points. So it's a negative correlation. And I mean, what that tells us is that when it's cold, the coat sales are higher. And when it's warmer, there's not as many coat sales. And that does make sense because there's a correlation there. So now I have 2 examples for you guys to tell me whether it's positive or negative. So for A, stopping distance, so the speed and how long it takes you to stop, is that a positive, negative, or no correlation? Tell me in the chat. Positive, yeah, you guys are correct. So if you look at it, it's going up and all the data is kind of doing the same thing. If I draw a line through it, it's not a complete straight line, there's kind of a curve, but it's still a positive correlation. And then B, birth month and how many hours you sleep at night. What kind of correlation do you see there? None, no correlation. Yep. So there's no correlation in this one because you can't really determine that because someone was born in December, they're going to sleep that many hours and it's going to increase or decrease for each month. So yeah, this one's just something you kind of can't put a line through. Good job, guys. So that is another part of the assignment you're going to have to do is telling correlation. And then, oh, I didn't have the last one open. One second. Then the last thing we're going to do for our assignment is kind of looking at data, being able to tell if it's looking at the data, putting a line in it, like a line of best fit, and then being able to determine a line from that data, like a slope intercept line. So I'm going to share my whole entire screen now. Okay. So this is like a different little system. It's what the math textbook gives. So I'm just now using it for the second time. I used it yesterday, so bear with me. Okay. So it says this table shows the weekly sales of a DVD and the number of weeks since its release. Write an equation that models the DVD sales as a function of the number of weeks since its release. Interpret the slope and y-intercept. So what you're going to do, you're going to kind of do this for your assignment tomorrow or Thursday. So you're going to be given a blank graph and you're going to be given a table like this. And then you're going to be given the little dots and you're going to have to graph it yourself. The book already graphed it for us, but so you're going to put the little points on there and graph it. So that's step 1. Step 2, you're going to decide whether you can do correlation with it, like put a line through it. So if it was no correlation, we couldn't. But looking at this data, I see that it's trending downwards, and so it's a negative slope. So then you're going to use the line tool on the assignment, Google Slides, and put a line through it to the best of your ability. When you're doing this, you want to make sure the line goes as close to all the points as you can get it to. And then write an equation using 2 points on the line. So we've been working on this. We haven't really used an actual graph, but you've used 2 points to determine the line. So right here, it gives us 2 points, 5, 10, 6, 8. So we're going to use those 2 points to write an equation of the line. So my first step is to find slope. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I get -2 for my slope. So I put my line through my scatter plot, picked 2 points, picked those 2 points, and made slope. Now, use the slope and the 0.68 to write an equation of the line. So this is what we've been doing, where we only know part of it, and we're going to try and solve for b. So I'm going to write my equation without b, or putting in plus b because I don't know it yet. So my slope is -2, so it's y equals -2x plus b. So now I'm going to plug in 6 and 8 into my equation. So I'm going to put in 8 for y and 6 for x. And then I'm going to solve for b. So -2 times 6 gives me what? -12, yep. And then bring down my b and my 8 because nothing happened to them. How am I going to move my 12 to the other side? Am I going to add or subtract it? I'm going to add it, yep. So it's subtraction right here, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is addition. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides of my equation. These 12s cancel, and I'm left with b. 8 plus 12 gives me 20. So I know that my b is 20. So now I'm going to come up to my equation and put in 20 for b. Okay, so said write an equation that models the DVD sales as a function. Check. Done. Now we need to interpret the slope and the y-intercept of the line of fit. So you guys won't have to do this for your assignment, but I'm just going to do it so we can kind of, it's just kind of like putting it all together. But what does the slope tell us and what does the y-intercept tell us? So the slope being -2, if you remember back to chapter 3 when we worked with slope and finding slope, slope is a rate of change. So slope is telling us how much something is changing. So the slope is telling us that DVD sales are down, or going down by 2. So, and since it's in millions, so slope means going, and it's negative. So going down by 2 million each week. And then our y-intercept being 20, what does that tell us? Well, if we come over here and look at the graph and see where it's 20, that's on the y-axis where it's 0. So that means that at week 0, there was $20 million in sales, but that can't make sense if it's week 0, like nothing happened in week 0. You know what I mean? Like, has to be out for a week to get numbers. So since it's 0 and equals 20, that doesn't really mean something to us. So this y-intercept doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't tell us anything about our information, but the slope does. It's going down 2 million each week in sales. So they solve it kind of a different way using point slope, which we haven't worked on before, but they do say down here that the slope is -2 and means sales are decreasing by 2 million, and the y-intercept has no meaning because there are no sales in week 0. So that is kind of the longer way to do it. What you're going to have to do for the assignment, let me pull it up for you, is you're going to get little Google Slides. And where is it? Right there. So it's 5 questions, and it's going to look like this once it loads. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to take all these points and you're going to put them on the graph, step 1. So 120 for X and 20 for Y. You're going to click on the point. Remember, using your arrow keys makes it a little bit easier to move it around, but you're going to place it on the graph accordingly. Oops. Then you're going to find the correlation. So right here, you're going to type if it's a positive correlation, so it looks like a positive slope, negative correlation looks like a negative slope, or no correlation, can't put a line through that. Then you're going to use the line tool right here. Draw a line of best fit through your data, making sure it goes through 2 points, and then write the equation of the line. So you're going to take the 2 points, find slope, find the y-intercept, put it right here where it says equation, and you're going to put it in as y equals mx plus b form for your answer. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the Google Classroom and assign this for you guys. We only have 5 minutes left, but if it's fresh in your mind and you want to get started, go ahead. But when